Hey there, welcome to Her Truth Revealed, unraveling our midlife era. I'm your host, Wonderful Morrison. This space is for the woman who's done pretending, done hiding, and ready to step fully into her truth. Midlife isn't about fading into the background. It's a time where resilience lights the way and authenticity becomes the loudest voice in the room. In this season of our lives, we are more than just survivors. We are creators, revolutionaries, and unapologetic women rewriting the rules. I've been through my battles, rebuilding from loss, betrayal, and heartache. But here's the truth. Every challenge, every tear, and every setback has led me to this moment of profound transformation. Together, we're going to dive into raw, real conversations that shatter stereotypes, tackle the tough stuff, and embrace the powerful magic that is midlife. So, if you're ready to live this chapter with boldness and joy, hit subscribe. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it and leave a review so we can keep this revolution going. Ladies, no more masks, no more apologies, just the truth of who we are. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to another episode of Her Truth Revealed. I'm your host, Wonderful Morrison. And let me just tell you a little bit about what Her Truth Revealed is. It's called the midlife era, raveling the spaces. And if you don't know what the midlife era is, look it up. It's not just an age group. It's not just a generation. It is a transitional period in all women's lives that we cannot escape, even if we tried. It's coming for us, and it's coming for us with a serious fierceness. And the whole purpose of this podcast is for us to talk about this transition together, because we've been doing it alone for too long. My mom was all on her own. My grandma was all on her own. And I'm pretty sure all of yours was too. So with that being said, today I have the most amazing guest. So when I started my own personal journey, I don't know, millennial ago, Katie and I ended up in the same room together. And we ended up in a room with two other people. And she set the pace for how to lay out vulnerability. And she has really been inspirational to me ever since. Although we don't talk every day, we stay in touch like most everybody, right? Social media. And she's had a journey. And that's what this story is about. But before we get into Katie's story and her journey, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been listening, who follows us, who leaves reviews, who likes us, who shares us. Thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. So let's get started. Welcome to the show, Katie. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. It's great to be here.
Oh my gosh. So when we met so many years ago, you had a huge transition that happened in your life. So let's start there, and then just for a few minutes so people have a backstory, and then let's get to where you're at currently.
Sure. When you and I met, it was pre-pandemic. I believe
Yes.
it was 2018.
Yes.
At the time, I was a very new life coach. I had graduated from a training program, year-long program in July of 2018. And I had at that time a little baby, Moxie, who is now 7.5, but at the time was just a little nugget. And I was the transition was moving from a legal career. I had graduated law school in 2000 and practiced law in New York City for 5 years before moving out to the West Coast, where I practiced for a handful more of years. Before I then left that practice, I resigned from the practice of law, not knowing if I would ever go back. And the impetus for my resignation was that I was grieving the death of my firstborn child, Poppy. She was stillborn at full term in October of 2015. I had had a very healthy, gloriously beautiful pregnancy, and there was no cause for concern. And my husband and I, who had at that time only been married for about 6 months, went into the hospital when I was in labor to give birth. And that's when we found out that she no longer had a heartbeat. And so that was utterly devastating and life altering, as anyone can imagine. And spending about 4 months on a maternity leave and beginning the grieving process, I tried going back to work. I was a disability lawyer. And so all of my clients were traumatized in some way, whether physically, mentally, or a combination of both. And I had always been a very compassionate attorney that served the whole human and really, really cared about their stories. And when I tried to go back to work, there was no wall, there was no barrier, there was the veil between me and their suffering was gone. And I couldn't separate myself and my own pain from theirs. And that really impacted my ability to advocate for them because I so sad and so anxious and so overwhelmed and so self-aware and self-conscious and so on and so forth. And so I took that very difficult decision to leave my job, but I knew that I had to do that in order to heal. And in order to sit in the stillness and the silence and the sadness of my loss and to begin to wrap my head around and my heart around that the fact that babies die and that mothers go home empty-handed from the hospital. And I was in this transitionary phase of figuring out who I was without my daughter, without my job, and really being stripped of that identity and then being able to rebuild. And then, like I said, when I met you, I had decided to go to coaching school and I had graduated, and coaching felt very aligned with where I wanted to go in terms of continuing to serve the whole human and to be with people as they become the best versions of themselves and learning how to live in their essence and so on, which is what I had been doing. And yeah, when you and I met, I was dreaming big and learning more about myself and how to be a coach in the world.
Yeah. Well, and I think, so much of why coaching and therapy, counseling, mentorship is so vital and more today than ever before is an experience, a relatable experience, not the story itself, but the emotional spaces, right?
Yeah.
Is really because that's what, when I met you, I was like hardcore shut down. I'm just
Mhm.
going to do. And when you laid it all out, in that meeting of four people, I was like, shit, here we go. Here it is. Here's what the truth of life truly is, right? Because we can only fake it till you make it for so long. And
Mm.
plus that statement is sort of like not my favorite. So then you get into this coaching world and then you wrote a book.
Yeah.
Ah, can I just say that's all I can say. I mean, a girlfriend picked up the book too, and she's like, "Oh my gosh!" I go, "Right?" Like you have such a way of describing emotion that's real.
Mm.
That's not from a like a bystander or I'm looking in from outside, but it's like this space where gosh, when books can make you cry or make you
Mm.
feel the emotion, that is a book told from the heart. So tell us about the book that you wrote.
Yeah. Thank you. I published a memoir. I was deeply inspired very shortly after Poppy's death by a memoir that was also written by a woman who'd lost her son very close, full term. It was a very viable, beautiful pregnancy. I think she was 38 weeks when he died inside of her. And she was a published author, a university professor of writing. I had graduated college with an English lit major, so loved to write. And funny story, had decided to go to law school rather than grad school because I questioned myself. I was like, because grad students have to write a book. And at the age of 23, I was like, I don't have a book to write. Like, I don't know what I'm going to write a book about. And so, ironically, in full circle, the universe gave me that opportunity when Poppy passed away. And so, I was deeply inspired by this other book that had been written, and it was so poetic and lyrical. And it was a memoir, of course, but it read like fiction because of how beautifully this woman portrayed her environment and her emotions and everything. And so, that ended up being very much a guide for me in my journey. And 3 months after Poppy passed away, I, on social media, committed to writing a memoir about my experience, which is a little bonkers because 3 months had passed and I had no idea where the story was going. The
Yeah.
story hadn't been written yet. It was a memoir, but it wasn't a remembering, it was a living out the
Yeah. You were
story.
still in it.
I was in it. And that is the piece I think that you and your friend connect with, and everyone else that's read
Mm.
the book, is I wrote it while it was happening. I wrote it while I was grieving. I wanted to capture the rawness of being in the grief, in the
Mhm.
sadness, because I knew that that was the most authentic way that I was going to be able to share that with others. And that if I waited and tried to remember what it felt like, it would be that perspective that you just described from the outside looking in. But I was from the inside looking out. I was giving everyone the experience from within me and what it looked like to be a grieving mother, a bereaved woman who's lost her identity as a lawyer, who doesn't know what's next, who's desperately begging God to help me make sense of this loss, and also to connect with Poppy's spirit from the get-go. I started writing the night we got home from the hospital. I had decided to donate my breast milk, which is a lifesaver for me because I couldn't bear the thought of Poppy's milk going to waste. And fortunately, I was connected with a nonprofit milk bank in the Pacific Northwest
Mhm.
called Northwest Mothers Milk Bank. And that first night that we were at home from the hospital, I woke up very early in the middle of the night, essentially, and because I was engorged and in quite a bit of pain, and went into the nursery to express what was then colostrum. And after expressing that precious tiny amount of fluid, I picked up a journal that my mother had given me to track memories of being with my daughter. That was the reason that
Mhm.
she'd given me the gift. And I started journaling. And some of those journal entries made it into the memoir, word for word, as I'd written them. So my writing was always a way for me to be very, very sad and honest with myself. I remember moments typing on my laptop where I actually couldn't see the words in the document because the tears were so thick that I just had to trust that my fingers knew what they were typing. But I turned back to the page over and over again, whether it was pen to paper or on my laptop. I used recording devices. It was 2000 and 18, 19, 20. I ended up publishing it in 2022. So I wrote it over the course of 6 years. But before AI, I mean, of course, we had smartphones at that point, but I rarely used my voice memo. I literally had one of those old school journalist recorder things. And I
I know
spent
exactly what you're talking
hours
about.
and hours and hours retyping out thoughts that I had. The memoir ended up coming to fruition and being published in May of 2022. I also recorded the audiobook, which was a tremendous honor to be able to narrate that book. And it was interesting too because of the layers of healing. When you publish a story or a book, or you have to read it out loud many, many, many times to look for errors and to look for things to edit and change and whether it flows. And every time I had to read it out loud, I had to listen to my story over and over and over again. And there were so many times when I would just end up bawling again and again and again because there was a point at which I had done so much healing. And then I was reading my own story. And there were moments where I was like, oh my God, this woman so much. And then it would be like, wait, Katie, that it's you, sweetie. Like, this is your story. So it was amazing to be able to have that kind of compassion for myself. And then again, when I recorded the Audible version, it had to be performed essentially. And there were many, many times when I had to press pause because it was incredible how like more emotion would come out, more healing would come out. Like, wow, I didn't know I
Wow.
needed to feel that again. And I would. Yeah, so it is my life's work. The title is Still Breathing. My journey with love,
Wow.
loss, and reinvention. And the title, I won't tell the whole story because it takes a bit of time, but the idea is essentially that I was always breathing for Poppy as her mother, as we do.
Mm.
We breathe in, we exhale for our babies in utero, and I am still breathing for her. I am
Mm.
breathing her legacy. I am breathing her love. I am two souls bound into one. She is with me, and I will continue to breathe for her as long as I'm alive.
I think we need a moment of silence there because that was so beautifully, just like your book, beautifully, like you said, poetically said and written. Because what's interesting is my daughter, unfortunately had a few miscarriages, and
Mhm.
it was, I don't think death, no matter what time frame or age or when it's happening, it's all the same. It's grieving, it's painful, it's suffering. And when we are in that space together, whether we've experienced it personally or not, you become held by more hands than you can count. And that's the beautiful part of human existence that I think we don't talk enough about, that we are here for each other. We say it a lot, but are we really there for each other is the other question that we ask. And so, then you're Moxie. Here's Moxie.
Mhm.
It's beautiful. By the way, she looks like the spitting image of you. Every
She's a
time I
cutie.
see her, I was like, oh my gosh, you two are twins. So then Moxie shows up in the world, in your life, and you are still in their coaching world, right? And you're becoming more of the person and being in a direction
Yeah.
where that original story was like, I don't know what's happening here. What's happening now? So then the book is written, and then another monumental
Mm.
shift happens in your life. Tell us about that.
Okay. Oh goodness. Um, in February of 2022, when I was working on the final edits of my memoir, I had 13 beta readers. I was getting all this incredible feedback. I was integrating all of it. I was working with my publisher to get the thing done, which anyone who's ever written a book knows it's a colossal effort. And I was reading stories one night, bedtime, to my daughter, Moxie, who was then 4, and I felt a lump in my left breast. It was right behind my nipple and it was painful. And my hand had rested on my breast while I was reading the stories. And I was just like, oh, that hurts. It was, and I even asked my daughter to touch my breast. I said, do you remember mommy's boobie feeling this way? She said, no. I was like, gosh, I asked my husband that night to feel it. And then at that time, by then, I had started using this transcription app called Otter AI, and I recorded my thoughts into this app before taking a shower. And I just said it. I said, I'm pretty sure I have cancer. I just knew it.
Wow.
I knew it that night. I had developed enough of a relationship with my intuition at that point to know that something was very wrong and that the universe was giving me a message by creating what was in fact a tumor in my left breast and giving me a sign that, like, at the time there were a lot of things going on in addition to the book and everything else I was trying to write. And I just felt like God essentially was like, I know you're very stressed out about these other things, but there's something else that's more prescient and you need to take care of it. And gave me the tumor, and the tumor appeared, right? So I had about 5 weeks between feeling that initial tumor and actually getting my very first ever mammogram. I needed to get my book done. And so I was like, I will do that, but I have to finish this thing first. And so I got my manuscripts completely submitted and done. And then I went and got my first ever mammogram. And the very next day, I got a call from my naturopath who said that she had gotten a call from the radiologist who said, who's going to call your patient because Katie has breast cancer. So yeah, that was insane. After a whole bunch of diagnostics, I, in fact, was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. It had moved from my breast into the tissue, into the lymph nodes, and then had metastasized, traveled through my bloodstream, and landed in my sternum, which is of course, the bone that protects our heart. So I had one lesion that was essentially the size of like a raisin on my sternum, and that's called oligometastatic, which means that you only, like, when you have 3 or fewer mets. So the met is the lesion of cancer outside of the original site. So when you have three or fewer, it's called oligo. That's the Latin. And oligometastatic breast cancer is, believe it or not, I was lucky. We'll just say that. I was lucky because I had only one met on my sternum, and that met was relatively close to the original site. So, my heart bone was pretty close to my left breast. And because it was on the bone and not in the organ, the plan was curative. I had two different sets of doctors from Fred Hutch and also from Swedish, where I got all of my treatment, that said, we're going to cure you of this. We believe we can cure you, which theoretically stage 4 illness is not curable. Anyways, I went through all of the treatment. I was completely destroyed by chemo, and then I had the mastectomy and lymph node surgeries, and then I had 6 weeks of radiation. I had 17 infusions of immunotherapy. I'm still taking hormone suppressing drugs. I was thrown right into menopause. My first dose of chemo took me at the age of 41 straight into menopause. But I have no evidence of active disease in my body. That's called NEAD. Lots of people have probably heard NED, which is no evidence of disease. But in the case of stage 4, you say no evidence of active disease. So I've had no evidence of active disease in my body since had my first follow-up MRI after chemo, which is, I am a walking miracle. Yeah, I know. Clap, clap, clap. I know. I am a miracle. And I believe I have been cured. I am still receiving treatment, still see my oncologist and do all the things that I have to do. But I believe wholeheartedly that my cancer was a messenger and that something had to change. And that, although you're not asking me, I'm going to go ahead and answer this question. If I learned one thing from being diagnosed with cancer and going through treatment, it was to eliminate anything that feels toxic. I have eliminated all toxicity, and the second something feels toxic in my life, it is out.
I can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
Because I think that's something we all say, right? So as I talk to so many women in midlife, what we've come to realize is we've allowed so many things, and then we suppress, right? So we allow shit, and then we suppress the thing that's supposed to help us through. And you're saying it from real time. You're saying real time.
Legit.
There is no more time to just second guess. Our intuition knows, right?
Yes.
Intuitiously, we know. And midlife kind of exasperates it, right? It kind of takes us to the facing. Brene Brown said it the other day, the universe grabs hold of our shoulders, looks us in the eyes and says, time's up. This is it. We're not fucking around anymore.
Correct.
This is it. Whatever we thought was protecting us, keeping us safe, is the very thing. So we've all heard the word toxic, and we all kind of have an understanding of what it is. But you're saying it from real time. You went from stage 4 to no stage, right? No active.
Right.
No active ingredients that are when you say whenever something feels toxic, what does that really mean? How can you help us understand what that looks like, tastes like, feels like?
I have developed, someone might call it like their spidey sense. Like that tingling, like you're listening to yourself. Some people call it your gut, your intuition, a knowing. Everybody's going to have a slightly different way of describing it. I'll take it back just real briefly to give a little bit more context to that night that I felt the tumor behind my breast. I had been at the time going through a lawsuit related to a car accident that I was in 2018. A guy had run a red light and I ended up flipping several times over in the middle of James and Bourne, taken to the hospital. It was terrifying. That was September of 2018. And I quote unquote walked away from the experience and was told to take Advil if I was sore, but I had whiplash throughout my entire spine. And I had this lawsuit that because I was a lawyer, I thought I could represent myself. And I was like, I'll just represent myself. Like I'll save the 1/3% on the personal injury lawyer and I'll just do it myself. And then the rubber met the road when I had the opportunity to finish writing my memoir. And I was like, this is years later at the time, 2 years late, 2 years. It had to have been 2.5 because there's a 3-year statute of limitations on filing the lawsuit. And I was like, crap, either I write my book or I represent myself in this lawsuit. I am the only one that can write my book. Someone else can represent me. So I ended up hiring someone that I had known personally. He was a lawyer. We had been friends. And I did not know that at the time he was deeply involved in a meth habit and was destroying his life and destroying his career and destroying his marriage and destroying all sorts of things that related to other people as well. Any other client he had, he was destroying their lives, but he was a narcissist and he was very convincing. And I decided to hire him, not knowing any of this about him at the time. I didn't know any of that.
Right.
Obviously, I wouldn't have hired him, but I hired him to represent me in my lawsuit. And he dragged it on. And it was literally the worst attorney I could have possibly ever, but I trying to save him. Every time he'd screw up, I'd give him another chance and I'd talk him through it. And I'd say, gosh, that feels hard. And I'm so blah, 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 blah. I just kept bending over backwards to help the person that I had hired to help me because I thought that I could somehow save him. And we have all, well, I don't know if we have all, but so many of us, yeah, you're raising your hand, have all been like embroiled in these narcissistic relationships where we think we can change the person and we think we can help them and we can think that we can save them. So fast forward, he files the lawsuit on the very last day that it was legally allowed to be filed, which also ironically happened to be my birthday because I was in the car accident the day after my birthday. So it was literally the last day that the case could be filed. I was like, please get this done. I was begging him. I was like so stressed. And then he disappeared. He disappeared. He literally disappeared. I stopped hearing from him. And that February, the day before I felt the lump in my breast, out of utter desperation, I called Geico, the opposing counsel. I called the insurance company of the guy who had hit me, and I said, I left a voicemail. I was like, I know this is very strange. I'm represented by an attorney. I can't get a hold of him. Have you guys heard from him? This is my lawsuit, yada, yada. Can someone please call me back? And within 2 hours, I was CC'd on an email to the Superior Court with a motion to dismiss attached because my attorney had never actually served the defendant. And I felt like an asteroid hit me from outer space. I literally felt like I had been hit by an asteroid. And I have been hit by a car, so I know what it feels to physically be hit. And I felt cosmically like I had just been nailed again by this guy who did not represent me and totally destroyed my case. The very next day, I woke up with a tumor in my left breast.
This is real-time toxicity, people. This is it. I mean, Katie is an example of like when it actually shows up. But how many of us, things like this happen and we just push it away like, you know what? It just was the wrong time. It was, what did I do? Like there's so many ways that we reason around the situation. And for you, there was no reason because it was your life. The very next day, it was life or death. It wasn't that maybe, Katie, we could
Exactly.
have.
Right, exactly. And that's what I'm saying about how the
Wow.
universe was just like, I know you just got hit by an asteroid, but guess what? That moment of stress that you experienced yesterday was so intense that it actually caused, I mean, you
Right.
know, if there are any oncologists out there, they're like, she's full of it. I don't know. But my point is that that was enough. Enough was enough was enough. And so all of a sudden, I was dealing with this lawsuit that was blowing up in my face that was worth well over $100,000 because of everything I had been through. The case was in fact dismissed. That
Because
attorney
last
was in
day,
fact disbarred.
boy.
He had done this to handfuls of people. He no longer practices law, and I no longer deal with narcissists or
Well, and
anything
then,
else that feels toxic, right? So, and then again,
yeah.
then here's so I have this tumor, I get treatment. Within a month of my first mammogram, I have my port placed in my chest so that I can receive my chemotherapy. And talk about toxic. For 5 months, am pumped full of the most toxic stuff you can possibly imagine. My hair falls out. My skin starts itching. I mean, everything possible that reveals to you that something is, I turn gray, like all the, everything.
Right.
And so I am literally being pumped full of toxic to save my life. I mean, it's very ironic, right? The very medicine that's
Yeah.
designed to save us almost kills us. And then we're required to rehabilitate ourselves once treatment is over. So toxic to me is very much relationship oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even, there are there are external substances, obviously, that are toxic, right? Like drugs, alcohol, overeating, like binge watching, like all the things that, that we do to numb ourselves and so on and so forth. But what I refer to specifically in the context of toxicity is all people have been eliminated in my life that feel toxic. I do not need you. You are not welcome here.
That is the midlife era. And I think, you said something earlier where the doctor says, we can cure you, right? Which let's think about that for a second. Stage 4. Those are not words that you hear when associated with stage 4.
Correct.
And you also even said how lucky that it was on the bone, not the muscle, right?
The organ, yeah.
Basically, this whole thing is the universe is really screaming in your face. And I think why you need to be on every single media presence is to remind
I'm working on
us.
it.
How much more time do we really have to keep going? Maybe.
None.
If right?
Nope.
No, we don't, because a prime example of like it all happened within the same time. From the moment I met you to this moment in front of you right now, all of that has transpired.
All of it. I'm working on about a decade. I mean, my husband and I just celebrated our 10th wedding anniversary, and Poppy will be 10 in October. It'll be 10 years, a decade. The last decade of my life has been utterly bonkers and beautiful and stressful and insane. And I've really gone through I really do believe wholeheartedly. I'm not saying that I'm done with trauma. I'm not saying that there aren't other things coming my way that I'm not going to have to transmute and integrate into my life in terms of sadness or heartache or whatnot. But I am at a level spiritually now. I am so connected to source and so grounded in like the center of Mother Gaia, like core. I am grounded. I am elevated. My vibration is so high. I told you I listened to your last podcast guest, and she talked about how you can walk into the grocery store and just be there and people be near you and their day is better as a result. That happens to me constantly. I brighten everything I get near. Fully embrace that radiance in myself now. My joy, my courage, my power, my connection to source, my divinity. I'm so happy with the path that I'm on, and I fully accept all of everything I've had to go through. I have surrendered over and over and over and over again. I've surrendered. I've laid it all flat. I've laid down. I've taken another nap. I've crawled back under the sheets. The amount of rest that I have given myself in order to process and to heal from everything that, losing my child, obviously, but cancer treatment is brutal. And the type of cancer treatment that I experienced, particularly, I joke with people, but I ordered like a quadruple, triple, full size package, whatever. You go to the McDonald's and it's like, you want the triple size, extra dose, like I got it all. And that's something that I'm really inspired now to talk about. I recently signed with a public speaking agent, which I'm very, very excited about. And we're working on honing in on my topics that I want to be able to speak about. And one of those in particular is really the idea of not if, but when. Not if, but when. Not if something horrible happens to me, but when. And the idea is it's the underpinning. It's what are the habits that you are working on cultivating now so that when something happens, you can call on that practice already. Because what I've seen is a lot of people are like living their life, things are like kind of mediocre, but everything's fine and nothing really
Right.
whatever. And it's like their marriage is okay and their kids are fine. And like, they're not too fat and they're not too this and it's okay. Nothing hurts that much, right? And then
Right.
they get smacked by that thing that's been coming at them for a while that they kind of convince themselves maybe would never
Yes.
actually happen. And then it happens and it all starts to crumble, right?
Ah,
Everything that was kind of holding itself together enough, and then it just falls out from under.
buckle.
And these
Right.
people, they don't know their values. They don't know what matters to them. They don't know what makes them happy. They don't know what makes them tick. They don't know the parts of themselves intimately enough that they're actually ready to let go of those patterns and core beliefs, right? Like they've just kind of been like getting away with life for a long time. And the last 10 years of my life have been like, you're not getting away. You got to look at all of it. You got to strip it
Wow.
all back and you got to eliminate what doesn't serve you. You got to do what makes you happy. You
Yeah.
got to embrace. I'm now calling myself a taboo busting nonconformity queen.
Yes.
Like that's just who I am.
Yeah. Well, and I think here's why I am so like, yes, yes, to the next level, yes. Because first of all, I've had goosebumps since the moment we got on this call. So that's a tell. But secondly, I've just been recently studying our diseases, which makes us dis-ease,
This ease.
is a 10-year period. It takes 10 years for any of this to show up. And you, my friend, are the voice that needs to be heard because it's like you don't have 10 years. You did it for us. You did the 10 years for us to turn around and say, we don't anymore have the time to disregard loving ourselves, to be
Yes.
fully within ourselves, to be authentically with. It's not enough to read one more book, to
Uh,
write
and
down
you don't
one
even
more
need to read
thing.
another book. Yeah.
Like the time is never the right time, but right now.
Right now.
Right. And that's what you're saying is you're like, I did the work in the 10 years. I did it all from the heartbreak of loss to the having to you didn't just change your career. It unearth what every mother and father wants for their child. You're either a doctor or a lawyer. Those are the two things. And you're like, I'm good. It's not like you walked away. I'm not dismissing clerks or anything, but I'm just saying you didn't walk away from some thing. You went to
Oh yeah.
school for
Yeah.
years for this to practice
Oh,
one specific arena
oh
in
man.
life that says that return on that investment is pretty high. And then
Exactly.
you're like, bye.
I
And
know.
then
That was not
you
easy.
wrote a book which has shifted so many. Are there a lot of people that have written books? Absolutely. I'm one of them. I wrote a chapter. But the undertaking of the pain of that book
Yeah.
writing is something you took it to the next level. And then in the process of that, you were in a car accident, not a rear end. Y'all, I was in a rear end, okay? And I'm still waiting for that thing to come to
Yeah, I
fruition.
bet.
It was just a rear. My car actually is fine. It's been driving.
Mine was
You're
completely
talking
totaled and
about
upside
a
down and to be
being,
pulled out of the car. It was insane. More, yeah.
and you didn't just get a lawyer that was shitty.
I got
On the plate. It wasn't just a shitty lawyer that didn't remember. No, we're talking extreme on the other side of I choose death every day person
Yeah,
lawyer.
yeah, I know. Who also had been my friend. That's the other thing is that I was like,
What?
oh, I can fix him, right? And no, I can't.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. None of us are responsible for fixing anybody else. And I don't feel
Ever.
that I as a coach now, of course, it was never I was never in the business of fixing anyone. But now in my life, I mean, in terms of my friendships, in terms of
Yeah.
my relationship with my mother, in terms of my relationship with my husband, in terms of relationship with my child. I mean, and I'm talking like my intimate relationships. As soon as something, my spidey sense, like that thing of like, no, you are
Yeah.
not allowed to treat me this way. I know my worth. I
Yeah.
know my value. I know how I want to be treated. And this behavior is not okay. And I will
Yeah.
choose to remove myself from any situation that feels like it's unwell. And I adore my wife, my wife. I adore my mother and my husband and my child, of course, deeply. But there are at times, in relationship, there are things that are like, that's yours and that is yours
Right.
alone. And you get to work through that and you get to heal from that. And if you choose not to, that is your choice. But I am not going
Right.
to submit myself to that and I won't be a part of it. So that takes tremendous courage because we're
Oh, yeah,
afraid
gosh.
that then we won't be loved. But the thing
Yeah.
is, I know I'm loved because I love myself more than anybody is ever going to love me.
Right.
And that love comes from a connection to source energy and to God, however you want to say it. I'm not religious at all. I'm deeply spiritual. And I continue to cultivate that relationship with higher source energy and my highest self. And in doing that, I am shedding cultural conditioning. I am laying down societal norms. I am, and again, could I have done this
That's
at
it.
25? No, I couldn't. I couldn't
Right.
because I was in the societal norms. I was becoming the lawyer. I was doing everything that I thought I had been told I had to do in order to have this life that, they say you're going to have, or I was in that conditioned zone. I was being conditioned. And now all the things I'm just like, there is no conditioning. I don't need
Yeah.
to sign up for that anymore. Like I did it and I've moved forward and moved on and evolved.
And I was listening to a new study that was shown that there is this frequency vibration that is 4,000 times more powerful than love. So
Wow.
love is like our ultimate pinnacle of human vibrational existence, right? But there's something more powerful than love, four times more powerful, by the way, and it's called authenticity.
That's my
And
number one value.
you just described what authenticity is. I think everyone talks about authenticity, but no one really knows what it is, right? It's like that elusive yellow diamond. It's like we
Sure.
know it exists, we've seen it, somebody has it, but no one
Right.
has actually breathed on it or anything like that. And you just described authenticity to its core truth because they say to get to love, right? To get to love, you've got to go through ego. And to get through ego, you have to like fight off all these other things to get to authenticity because love generating at the highest frequency can only come from authenticity.
Oh,
And you just described it. You just said all the things that we're afraid of like being unloved. Well, when you're authentic within yourself, you love yourself fully. And you can't give what you have. So it's not like you are actually taking anything away from Moxie by loving
no.
yourself more, by being authentic to yourself more. You're actually showing her the purest form
Yes.
of living as a
Yes.
7-year-old, as a 10, right? As she
Right.
continues to
Modeling
grow
that.
into who she is because and then they say, you know what the greatest indication of a successful human being is? So all these people are like, mom, dad, environment. And they say it's one thing that indicate 100% truth. The indicator of a successful human being is a happy mother. Not a successful mother, not a rich mother, not a fashion forward mother, not a
Uh-huh.
workaholic mother, not a
Yeah.
six-figure, a happy mother. And you know what they associate happy mothers to?
What?
Being exactly who the fuck they are.
Oh my God, I am the happiest mother on the planet. And to both of my daughters, to Poppy and to Moxie, and to my dog. I mean, it is such an honor to be a mother and to have gone through what I've gone through and to be able to model what is possible to
Mhm.
my daughter because I am modeling that authenticity and that resilience. And also, I model rest and I model
Mhm.
emotion and I have my feelings and I feel them and she sees me feel them. I mean, there were times when I was really sick with chemo and cancer treatment, all the decisions I had to make and all the like, choosing to continue treatment after I had a clean MRI and thinking I could stop. And then they were like, well, you have to keep going. And I was like, but it hurts and I'm tired. But I didn't know. I was like, should I be hiding this from my daughter? And I didn't hide anything from her. And the universe reflected back to me how much that was turning her into a compassionate, empathetic little human being who has skills beyond her age. But also, I think she chose to be with us, and she chose to be my
Right.
daughter in this lifetime. Poppy is her sister, and she knows all
Right.
about Poppy, and even has some sort of cosmic relationship with her, which is very cool. But I just thank you so much for acknowledging my authenticity, because it is my number one value. I say that authenticity is my number one value and vulnerability is my superpower.
You just described the answer to our question of how do we know what toxicity looks like in our lives? That's it, right? That is the spidey sense. The spidey sense comes from when we're authentic within ourselves. We can sense. How many times have we put ourselves in situations where we know? Like we know that we know that we know, bad situation, not a good place to be, shouldn't be in front of that person, should not talk to that person, shouldn't even walk foot into that
Right.
space, and we do it anyways. We
Or
compromise ourselves on such a regular basis until we're faced with, you have stage 4,
and I
you
knew
will
that. And
die.
that spidey sense, my intuition was desperately trying to get me to listen when I was going through the situation with the bad lawyer over and over and over again. And my husband was like, Katie, I don't understand why you keep giving him chance after chance after chance. And I was just like, I'm just gonna do it. I just was like, I'm gonna fix him. I'm gonna, and so I had to learn that lesson. That was a lesson this incarnation, in this body, in this lifetime,
Yeah.
had to learn, and I wasn't going to learn it any other way. And it was very painful, and it cost me a ton of money, and so on and so forth, and maybe gave me cancer. But I have surrendered to all that, and I have accepted all of that. And I accept it, and I don't fight against it. It is what it is. I am I am good at being present with reality instead of future tripping or trying to reason or explain my way out of something. I'm just present to it. And I'm getting better and better at that. I mean, I'm deeply flawed as a human. I mean, I am, but I'm way less flawed now than I was 10 years ago, when the people I had described earlier, life was okay. And, my job was
Yeah.
good and I was paying the bills, and like there was no real reason for whatever. Like, and I think that's what's hard, is that modernity and our like society as it's structured now demands so much of us anyways. Like we're so distracted by
Mhm.
all of the demands on us that
Mhm.
from the internet, and just like what's going on in that
Right.
sphere, to politics, to what we're supposed to know in terms of current affairs, or like what movies we're
Right.
supposed to be watching, or what we're supposed to be eating, or whether or not we should be drinking, or like, oh, there's so much going on that like so many of us just kind of fall into the trap of just kind of keeping up with that sort of very average but okay life.
Right. Well, and I think we get so numb to it. There's a animation film that is my son's favorite that totally describes Wally, right? We just become so numb to the experience that she
Yeah.
didn't even know she was on a floating thing. Remember, she fell off. She couldn't walk because she's like, oh my God, I didn't even know I had legs that moved.
Yeah.
What is this? Again, it's not to say that all things are crap and all things. I think
No.
it's about remembering that we are more real than the things that we're trying to acquire
Yes.
so
Yes.
desperately,
It is
right?
not outside of us. I mean, that is true. Like the more and more spiritual work I do, the more it is, I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing, especially if I sit in like a meditation, or I do some sort of guided thing, or an incantation or a ritual, and I just get higher and more full and more bright than I ever could possibly imagine. Then like I come back into wherever it is, if it's my living room or my meditation space, or sitting right here having a conversation with you, and realize like, oh my gosh, I just generated that within myself. Like that just came from
Yeah.
within. There is nothing external. There's nothing external.
And not that you're asking me to, and I'm going to use a word that everybody knows, but I want to validate that energy that you just expressed. Because, like I said in the beginning, we've known each other a while, but it's not like we talk every week but what's interesting is when I was going through my dark night of the soul, which is about around the same time, it was so refreshing for honesty because you were really honest. And I really had to work through why I'm having a lot of trust issues with toxic environments and people and things, is because I give so much tolerance to this one thing that's eating me alive, which is I want to be honest with myself all the time, but then I put myself in situations where people aren't and situations aren't, and then I'm just okay with it. So I'm just allowing the shit to happen while I'm fighting it internally. And I think that every time you showed up, I was like, wait, hold on. The course I'm on isn't that. I got to be on this because it was always so honest and real. And when you did this one thing one day that really, my mother passed away from breast cancer, and she had an incredible shame about her mastectomy, right? Deep. And I knew it. And it bled into me, into my self-esteem, into my self-worth. And there was a post that you had done where you were like, hey, this is me now. And I like, just even think about it makes me super emotional, because I remember getting really teary-eyed about it because I thought, man, if my mom hadn't been in such shame, she could have lasted. She was such an important person to my children, but she was gone too soon.
Yeah.
But she kept carrying the shame no matter where she went, to the point that it killed her. Cancer didn't kill my mother.
No, I feel that.
Let's be completely honest here. It was her shame in it. And when I saw you post that picture, I remember thinking like, thank you for the reminder. I will not carry shame. That's my toxic, right? I got to work about my shit first.
Well, and that's
my
the thing
toxic
too.
behavior.
We're surrounded by toxic people, but yes, if we can be honest with ourselves and say, what am I doing that's toxic? What's the behavior that I'm doing? And I would say, for me, the behaviors are, the very old limiting story that I'll never be enough, that there's always something more, that even my best isn't good enough, like these perfectionistic stories that kept me feeling crappy about myself, no matter how amazing I was doing, and then I thank you so much, Wonderful, for sharing that story about your mother. And just for people that are listening, I had what's called an aesthetic flat closure mastectomy. I had a single mastectomy, just my left breast needed to be removed, but I opted not to go through any type of reconstruction to have another breast, like an implant, because many reasons. One, I didn't want an implant. I didn't want something artificial going into my body. Two, I wanted to get back to my life and my daughter and not have to deal with all of the additional surgeries that are required and the risk of further infections and even cancers related to implants. But most importantly, I wanted to be an example of a modern woman who does not identify with her breasts so heavily that they somehow dictate my value or my worth or my beauty or my ability to shine and be seen. And so the picture you're referring to, I'm assuming more likely than not, was where I actually showed my scar. I had my breast covered, my one right breast covered by a towel, but and with my arm, I think I was doing like the muscle pose. Those pictures are, to me, I'm like, I look amazing. Like, who needs two breasts? One's good enough, and I see that strength. I see the resilience. I see the healing. I see that scar. And I want people to see it, and I go to Olympus, the Naked Lady Spa, and I rock, I rock it. And, we need to show our scars. We need to, our physical scars, our spiritual scars, our emotional scars. Showing those scars gives other people permission to show their scars. And truly, I mean, we've all heard it, we're never alone, but we really aren't. And the more that you're willing to expose yourself, the more other people will be drawn into that, because it is that sense of vulnerability and like, oh my gosh, me too. Right? Me too. And that's that taboo busting nonconformity queen thing. Here's my scar. I had a dead child. Like, I'm going to talk about the things that make your skin crawl.
Right.
And if you run the opposite direction, fine. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, the
Right.
people that need me and the people that need my message are gonna like just be taken under my wing, and I can
Right.
help guide them and be an example. And sadly, so many women are diagnosed with breast cancer. And I see, because I'm in all these private groups, women are so depressed and they feel so abandoned and they feel so neglected. And it's very, very, very sad. And I don't feel responsible for anyone's healing other than my own, but I am exposed to it. And I hope bit by bit I can do what I can to help remind women
Right.
that we are not our breasts, and that, healing is an inside job that no one can do for us but ourselves.
Well, and I think too, it's this idea when so much healing conversations and narratives and books and coaching and everything went out, we went as women, we are like losing our minds because it's generations of conditioning. But I also think there needs to be guidance in that unraveling,
Mhm.
in that discovery, in that space, because too much of being in the story is
Yeah.
also bringing us back into the
Oh,
fold of trauma, right? So and I think it has to come from people who are like this, that's honest, because
yeah.
there is too much halfway done crap going on out there of like, wait, hold on, wait, I thought
Like,
we
it's very
were,
like the clickbaity type of stuff, like
yes,
how
very much
to's.
so.
Yeah, I mean, I once read, like, if how to worked, then the world would be a very,
Shit.
very different place, right? Or if people actually
Right.
followed through on doing what they say that they're, if people actually
Right.
stayed committed to what they say they're committed to, right? And that's a big piece, right? How to does work, but you actually have to do the thing. You have to be
Right.
in action. You have to follow through.
Right.
And yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there is a lot out there now that has become, truths have been watered down, in
Right.
some ways. But it is what it is.
That's
Like,
why you have
again,
to show up. This is why we need to have this collaborative relationship of like, hey, I want to, what have you been up to? What are you doing? What's going on? And and then be open to it of like, because that's how it happened. Literally, you commented something on something I wrote, and then I was like, hey, we need to talk.
yeah,
I need to get
totally.
you on here and not be so like, well, but how come you haven't reached out before? We
Oh,
need to be open for the experiences as it's happening in real time, because this is if you subscribe to what I subscribe to, all things happen at the time it's supposed to happen.
divine.
Are we arguing that, or why? And I just want to say this, as I could talk to you for
I know,
8,000
I
more
know. We gotta.
hours, but I gotta get
Yep.
I want to say this. Today was a tough day for me. I got up and I'm feeling kind of defeated. I've got some things going on, moving, my son graduating, the whole thing, all the empty nesting experiences,
Ah,
and moving my house I've been in for 20 years has really eaten me up more than I will admit. I thought I'd be like over it in 2 days. Okay,
yeah,
no, it's been months. I was really feeling defeated today, and it's funny because I've always said my forgiveness coach is constantly reminding me that we want it so fast. We want it to be done. The minute we are exposed to it and aware to it, like, look, I know, so fix it. And she's like, we have to give ourselves grace. It's time.
yeah,
No one can ever dictate time frame. No
yeah,
one, not even you. And I was like, and this morning, we're working on trusting and surrendering self.
yes,
And in this space and you just very much, as you always show up, you are a way maker. You are the carrier of that lantern on
I
my
am.
dark
I am a
path.
way shower. I am.
And once again, every time I describe Katie, she's been a way shower. That day, 7 years ago, in
Wow.
that room, like, shit, I gotta be vulnerable too. And then when you show that picture of your scar, it's like, shit, that's right. Like, stop carrying the shame. For what purpose is it
Yeah.
doing? And today you're reminding me, surrender.
Yeah.
That's how I alleviate this heaviness that I'm feeling. Not to eat one more piece of chocolate, which I will also do, but to surrender to it. Just surrender to it and trust that it's all going to work out when it works out. Divine timing is your North Star. Just
It
knock it
is.
off already.
Well, divine timing, but I keep a to-do list in my reminders app and it's never done. And some of these things are like big projects and others are like a quick email that I can shoot off. And I could allow myself to become completely overwhelmed by the to-do list that's never done. Or I can say, all of this will happen in divine timing. All of this is going to happen by the design that it's meant to happen in the order that it's meant to happen, that I really don't have control over. Because if I tried to box out my life and like time chunk my life and say,
Right.
now I have to go be creative for an hour, guess what? I would sit there and be so resentful that like I have to be creative and nothing's coming to mind, as opposed to then when I get struck after, let's say, a nap by a moment of creativity where then like 4 hours later I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go get my kid from school because I've been so in and I've knocked 16 things off the list and I've just been going, right? Like if we can, and I know I'm a solo entrepreneur, right? So I have some fluidity and flexibility that other people don't necessarily have, but in your own life, in your own way, I just encourage your listeners to give yourself the freedom to do it the way you like to do it. You don't need to fit into anybody else's box, or you don't need to do it on somebody else's spreadsheet or whatever. Make your own and then go live your life and live it fully and authentically. And, if you need help and you want some guidance, hit me up. I've got a great program right now that I'm guiding people through called Light Me Up. It's a 6-week self-awareness and empowerment intensive. It gets people really tapped into who they are and what their values, what their essence, what their priorities, what their purpose is. It's really straightforward. It's a beautiful series of conversations that I'm really, really enjoying guiding people through. Yeah, I mean, it's inexpensive. I'll give you the deets and you can give people that information in the show notes. But yeah, I mean, there are people out there that are willing to help and guide you. Find them. Don't do this by yourself. Don't do life by yourself.
And this is the global shift that we've all been talking about, that we've all been reading about and hearing about. It's not about thinking and doing more.
No.
It's really about connecting to our hearts and souls and then finding each other.
Yes.
To be wrapped in that, to be held in those hands, to hold each other, right? Am I so in love with the relationship that we have? Absolutely. Do we need to dig any deeper? Probably not. But do I want to share with the world everything that you are? Absolutely. Right? Like, why are we always so committed to, oh my gosh, but that success? Let it all go, everyone.
There's so much
Let's
abundance
surrender.
in the universe. There's so much prosperity. I mean, there is prosperity for everyone. And obviously, I know that the powers that be would like to keep the wealth in a small group of people. But in terms of like spiritual prosperity and our abilities to be at home within ourselves, that can come no matter how many pennies you have in your bank. And yes, I do think that there is an uprising of love, and old paradigms are crumbling. We're seeing it everywhere, whether we like what's happening or not. It is, I do believe, part of some sort of cosmic restructuring. And I know that love always wins, and that the vibration it's something's crumbling, but I'm part of the big uprising of joy and love. And I encourage everyone else to see themselves as part of that too. And start with yourself, start inside of yourself. That's where the revolution is really going to happen, within yourself.
100%. So I'm not even going to ask you the question I normally ask everybody because I feel like at this point there is the nuggets in this. I mean, this is the episode that I know people will rewind and repeat and re-listen to, because there is so much heart in it and so much soul, and you are the very thing that you value.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for your true authenticity, your true love, for truth. and sharing it with us in a time in everybody's life where uncertainty is ruling us.
Yeah.
Really, that's a choice. That's a choice we make. And
It is a
today I
choice.
choose to surrender to my loving self because I've been encouraged by you. So thank you so much for that. And I hope that all ears and all hearts that are listening in can look at themselves and say, me too. I choose me today. I choose me because you are our doctor in telling us we're gonna cure you today. That's what it is. Thank you so much, Katie. Thank you for all of Katie's information, books, programs, social media, all of it will be in our show notes. So I highly encourage you to follow this bright woman because we all be on a path of darkness, people. Come on. Let's not kid ourselves.
Lighten it up.
And yeah, let's find the show, the Waymaker, or the what did you say earlier?
Yeah, the way shower.
The way shower, because
But it's like a lantern. It's interesting. And also in the tarot, in the major arcana, there's the hermit. And the hermit is actually the way shower. And the hermit has a lantern that they hold up in front with the light shining. And the interesting thing about the hermit is that the only way that the hermit can shine the light for others is by having gone within herself. And it's the light that I have been able, it's God's light. It's, I'm not taking credit, but I am taking credit. It's because I am God's light. It's like, it's both and it's that commitment that I have to that inner light, and then taking it out and saying, okay, guys, look, here it is. I can show it to you. And guess where I got it? Inside of myself. And guess where your light is? Your light is within yourself. So yes,
let's do this. I mean, again, we could be on this call for another hour and all of you would get something out of it. She has a babe that she has to go take care of, and I have a bladder that I got to go take care of.
Oh yeah, go take care of that bladder.
So thank you again, everyone. Until next time, thank you so much, Katie. Let's do this together.
Let's do it together. I'm here for you.
All right.
And you for me. Thanks, more wonderful.
Thank you so much for being with me on today's journey. If you felt something resonate, if you saw yourself in this conversation, please take a moment to subscribe. Share it with a friend who needs this space and leave a review. It helps others find us, and it's a small way you can be a part of this powerful movement. Ladies, this isn't just a podcast. It's a community, a revolution, a place where midlife women come together to embrace our hard-earned wisdom and vibrant truth. So thank you for being part of this. Remember, it's time. It's time to step into our truth. No more holding back. Midlife is ours to own, and it's only getting started. So until next time, take a breath, honor your journey, and live with audacity, courage, and joy. This is our time, our truth, unraveled, revealed, and celebrated.